Colleagues, welcome to our media press conference regarding the preparations for Manifesto Launch. My name is Malatsi. I'm the party's national spokesperson. For the purpose of this press conference, we are joined by our head of policy, Cuthbert, who has been the driving force behind the writing of the Manifesto Launch. He's on my right. Then we're also joined by the party's federal chairperson, Dr. Meyer, and the party's parliamentary chief whip, Siviwe Gwarube. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome all of you here for this historic event. It's going to symbolize the largest mobilization effort that the DA has undertaken to place. So the activities for tomorrow we are expecting 15,000 DA supporters. The majority of those will be coming from Gauteng, so there will be bus from different areas here in Gauteng. The entire leadership of the Democratic Alliance will be here. All DA mayors, including the Premier of the Western Cape, and all the DA Premier candidates will also be present at the venue. The program will start at 10 with the march at Church Square. It will be a very short march of 2 kilometers from Church Square to here. And then at 11, the entertainment program will start to entertain those who will be here. The entertainment lineup that we have will be headlined by Kat Darren and Master KG. We also have Siki Joanne, Mbongeni Makaya, and Tana Wareham. In addition to that, the official program will kick off at 12. That will be highlighted by the main address being of the DA leader, John Steenhuisen. We are planning that everything will run on time and there won't be any delays. So we are anticipating that the official program should end somewhere around 1:30, just for your preparation purposes. We have been very encouraged by the high media interest in this. We have over 200 media accredited for the press conference. For those that haven't as yet collected their accreditation is taking place today at 2 venues. One is the Sheraton Hotel, which is just across the road, and also at our offices in Kululeke House at the DA office, for those that might not make the trip to come to the Union Buildings today. And also tomorrow earlier there will be a provision for that, but I would just like to encourage our colleagues in the media for a smoother flow of events tomorrow. Let's do the accreditation as much as we can and finish it today. So what we are looking forward to tomorrow is going to be a very smooth program. As you know, with our standard activities, we put a lot of effort and resources into making sure that it runs on time and it runs smoothly. We do not anticipate any major incidents. We have made provision for generator backups, particularly here at this venue. The last few days, there's been instances of power outage in this area, so we have planned in advance so that everything runs fluently and there is no interruption. But to get into the details of the manifesto and the journey that the party has taken to get to this juncture, I'd like to call Cuthbert, who will speak into details about that, followed by Dr. Meyer, who will talk about the strategic call that we have made to come here at the seat of government, and then our chief whip will talk about the state of the DA currently and the momentum that we are in. Matt, over to you.
Thank you very much, Solly. Good morning, colleagues. It's a very exciting day for us as the DA, and we're getting ready for our manifesto launch tomorrow. It's taken 10 months of meticulous work to get to this point, where we've consulted with our party structures across the board and across the country, met with experts to make sure that the offer that we give to South Africans is one that is credible, one that is realistic, and one that is grounded in the lived realities of South Africans. I think what's key about this particular manifesto is that it's very accessible. It's not a 260-page document like other parties have released. It's a short 50 pages, and it focuses on the key solutions we need to be able to turn our country around. I think we're often accused of writing for the business day, and I like to think that we've contrasted that this time around, because it's something that every South African from every walk of life will be able to understand, internalize, and be able to relate to. And I think that's what makes this the most important manifesto yet. Once we have proceeded with the process tomorrow, we will be taking this document to the ground, making sure that all our activists are briefed on this document, that voters in our communities across the board, from Tembisa to Bedford View, are out there and know about our document and know about our offer to rescue South Africa. And we firmly believe that together, hand in hand with civil society and business, we can rescue South Africa, and we believe that this plan provides us with an opportunity to do so. I think that our country is counting on us to do this, and it's important that we don't let her down. Now, we don't want to scoop ourselves for tomorrow, but I thought that it would be worthwhile to show you guys exactly what our manifesto looks like for tomorrow. And if you stay tuned until 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, you'll get some more detail on it, and we'll be happy to take some more questions around it. But I present to you the rescue plan for South Africa, the DA's plan to turn around our country and get it back on the right trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and good morning, everybody. And thank you for joining us here at the Union Buildings. You may ask, what is the significance of our presence here today at the Union Buildings? Well, you will know and recall that in 1994, President Mandela took the oath of office right here at the Union Buildings in 1994. But we know that the ANC broke that dream, and we are here today and tomorrow in particular for the second freedom. We know that the ANC broke the Constitution, and they broke it in their decision-making and the plans and execution in the executive. We are here at the Union Buildings because this is the center of power. This is the place that must have the highest respect for the Constitution of South Africa, both in terms of the powers and duties of the executive, but also in terms of the oath of office of the president. It's not only the center of power, it is the executive seat of power. But under the ANC, it has become the executive seat of corruption. And so we are here with a clear message at the Union Buildings because we are a government in waiting. We are physical closer to the Union Buildings tomorrow, but we also electorally closer to winning the election. So we have a realistic plan. And so as my colleague Matt Cuthbert has mentioned, this is a plan rooted in research, science, data, and evidence. So it is not an empty plan of empty promises like we have seen in the State of the Nation address by the President. Our plan is a clear pathway to victory, but it's also a plan and a commitment to rescue South Africa and to change South Africa, because under the ANC, this place has become a failed state, a criminal state, and a mafia state. And so we are here for execution at the executive seat of government because we are here to show an intent to govern, an intent to rescue South Africa. We want to bring to the Union Buildings an ethical government, an honest government, a capable government, and a caring government. Currently, we do not have an ethical government in the Union Buildings. We do not have an honest government in the Union Buildings. We do not have currently a capable government in the Union Buildings. And we definitely do not have a government that is caring in the Union Buildings. And so the Democratic Alliance Federal Executive Authority has approved this plan to effect change in the lives of people. Day one, you will see some changes under a DA government because we understand the executive duties of the executive authority as outlined in the Constitution. It will be here where we are right now. This will be the place after the election in May when a new president will undertake the following oath. The new president will have to assist us to rescue South Africa, and the oath is part of the tools to rescue South Africa if you have an honest government in the union buildings. This person will have to promote and advance the republic and oppose all things that will harm the people. This person will also have to protect and promote the rights of all South Africans in this union buildings. They must also discharge their duties with all your strengths and talents and to the best of your knowledge and ability and true to the dictates of his or her conscience, and to do justice to all in this building behind me, the Union Building. And this person that will become the next president of South Africa in this Union Buildings will take an oath of office to be managed by the Chief Justice. And lastly, in terms of this oath at the Union Buildings, this person that will be sworn in as the next president after the May elections must devote him or herself to the well-being of the Republic and all its people. That is the real significance of why we are here today at the Union Buildings, launching our manifesto here tomorrow with the federal leader, John Steenhuisen, outlining the key commitments in our manifesto. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Meyer. Colleagues, it is all systems go for the DA for tomorrow. We will be having tens of thousands of people here tomorrow, and we are incredibly excited. But I think it's important to note in the context in which we are launching this manifesto in this election year. One, we are launching this manifesto during a very difficult time in South Africa, where 30 million people are living in poverty, 7 out of 10 young people do not have work, and many of our communities are not safe. And South Africa has recently been plunged into stage 6 load shedding, even after the commitment by the president and his minister that we will be seeing the beginning of the end of load shedding. As our MPs demonstrated this week in Parliament, we are making our offer to South Africans in this context, and we are saying these are the issues that matter to you. These are the issues that are the things that are really the albatross around your neck, and these are the solutions that we as the official opposition have to those solutions. We want to assure South Africans that our offer that will be launched tomorrow has been costed. It is very much rooted in our fiscal reality currently in South Africa, not where we want to be, but where we currently are and how we get to where we want to be. And chiefly in this offer that we're going to be launching, we want to lift people out of poverty. We want to make sure that we get people into employment. We want to resolve the energy crisis that is going to be hindering and continues to hinder our growth. We want to make sure that we have safe communities and that essentially we rescue South Africa from the clutches of ruin. The DA has been poised internally to not only make the offer to South Africans of where we are, but also to ready ourselves. And we've been engaged in a series of ready to govern workshops with the various provinces. As many of you know, we have identified strategic provinces where our research shows us that we are likely to see a DA-led coalition government, whether it is in KwaZulu-Natal or Gauteng or the Northern Cape. And of course, the intention is to retain the Western Cape with an increased majority. But all of those things are not viewed outside of the overarching and very bold goal of forming a national government that is going to be led by opposition parties, anchored by the Democratic Alliance in 2024. And the reason being is that we believe that South Africa cannot afford to have another 5 years of the ANC at the helm of government, and that we desperately need an alternative. And we believe that that alternative is not only poised to take over, but we've identified a clear path to victory. The formation of the multi-party Charter 2 has also increased our view of how we get to a national government coalition. Our research is showing us that we are well on our way to achieve our targets and our electoral goals. But of course, this research is only a guide, because ultimately the most important poll is the poll on election day. And so we take nothing for granted. We're going to be working flat out as soon as this manifesto has been launched. From Monday onwards, we will be taking our offer to every corner of the country, and we will be campaigning hard to showcase South Africans what it is that we are bringing to them. We're outside of the ANC, we're the only other political party that has the kind of depth and the kind of reach that can see us having a branch in every single ward, which has been a very targeted approach of the DA leadership of the past couple of years, to make sure we've got structures in wards so that when we launch our campaign, this campaign is easily taken to the ground as quickly as possible. And so while our research is encouraging, we take nothing for granted. We'll be going out there and we're going to be campaigning hard and showing South Africans that life does not have to be this way, that we can have a better South Africa that is led differently, that is led by a caring government. And lastly, it is very important for us that the president does proclaim the election date. It is our view that it is an unfair advantage to the African National Congress that the president is not announcing the election date. We were hoping that we would see the announcement in Parliament this week. It would seem as though the president has once again kicked for touch, and we are likely to maybe see an announcement in the next coming week. But our view is that we want the election date announced, because we want to make sure that South Africans know what we're working towards. We want to make sure that we know what we are working towards, and we're ready. We are ready to make sure that we work towards an election date and where we're going to see South Africa usher in a new government. And so we are calling on the president that whatever dots need to be dotted and T's need to be crossed, that he may do so speedily, so that we too can know when the election date is, so that we can get our structures ready, and that South African can also know when can they go to vote in a new government. Thank you.
Thanks very much, colleagues. Now for your favorite part, can I have an indication of hands for your questions? I see 2. Cool. Yeah, let's go with those. Let me just make sure that we get all of them at once so that the responses can come through. But let's start with you. Just introduce yourself as is the standard protocol and your question.
Thank you. Busichi Mombe from the SABC. I just want to find out about your approach in terms of drafting this manifesto. You talk about the fact that you've done a lot of scientific research and there's evidence. At which point do the voices of the people of South Africa actually come through? It sounds like it's a very top-down approach, and even the idea that you talk about rescuing South Africa, it suggests some kind of victimhood where people are not in charge of their own destinies, as in the DA will be the ones who are taking charge and making the solutions. Surely people should be part of their own solutions?
Cool.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Natasha.
If you can just elevate your voice a bit.
Oh, sorry. It's Natasha from the SABC News. Siviwe, you talk about retaining the Western Cape. And I know you can't use the recent by-election results as a barometer to actually judge what's going to happen at the polls. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you lost 2 wards to the Patriotic Alliance and to the FF Plus in the Western Cape. Is the DA not concerned that it actually may lose the Western Cape as its stronghold? just furthermore, in 2019, the DA didn't do so well, and we saw Mmusi Maimane leave the party. If John Steenhuisen doesn't deliver the desired results or outcomes for the elections, will he suffer the same fate as Mmusi Maimane? Last week at the EFF's manifesto, I'd spoken to the EFF leadership there, and they are very confident that they would actually take over the DA as the main opposition. Your reaction to that, please. Thank you.
Cool. Sure.
Raymond from Netwerk 24. I just want to know, we all know that, our country might be governed by...
Can I just ask you to be a little louder?
We all know that our country might be governed by a coalition government, and the DA through the multi-party charter is looking at that. Now, the Cape Independent Party, they want to join the multi-party charter. Is the DA in favor of that? Because one of your other coalition partners, X and S, they say they don't agree with them joining.
Okay. Cool. On this side, it's uncharacteristically quiet. Okay, cool. Sure. I mean, just to start off, before I hand over to Matt and my colleagues, because Natasha touched on, what happens after the elections. The standard protocol internally is that obviously we look at the performance of, the party in the elections, and the highest decision-making body of the party is Federal Council. Federal Council will then guide the party on how to proceed based on what we have performed and how we have performed. But I mean, our goals going into these elections are very clear. We want to grow from our performance in 2019. We have committed that we will bring half the votes that are needed to deliver the multi-party charter into government. We want to retain the Western Cape with a majority. And through the efforts of the DA and the multi-party charter, we are looking to shift victory towards us in KZN, Gauteng, and Northern Cape. I mean, if you look again, Natasha, to your question on the performance of the by-elections, just yesterday, on Wednesday, right? Yeah, there were by-elections, and we won 2 by-elections, including here in Gauteng, where we grew by a majority. I mean, we improved our performance in one of the wards in here. It's 2, out of 3, we won 2 and lost 1, and often there are localized developments that determine the flow of things in by-elections. Some of them don't have an impact on the broader scale at a national level. But the general attitude is that we are not leaving anything to chance, and we are not going into this election overconfident. We are going to put in the work. And our performance through the registration period speaks to the efforts that we have put on the ground to make sure that every potential DA voter that we can get, we have gotten them to register. And until, we can no longer register people, we'll continue to do that. But the Chief Whip and the Chair will get into details about that. But Matt just handled the question on the involvement of, external people and potentially the public on the manifesto. Do you want to just...
You have to love the Johannesburg media corps and the questions that come through. To start off, is it a top-down approach? I don't believe it's a top-down approach. All of our party policies are readily accessible on our website. We continuously have whole of society engagements with a variety of organizations, communities, and that informs our party policy making process, because it doesn't help if we as the DA internally think that these are good ideas, but they don't have resonance amongst voters. And that's why it's important that on a continuous basis we constantly reach out to communities, we reach out to experts to make sure that what we've got is something that is grounded in reality. And I think it's very important that we do that, because ultimately if we want people to come out and support us, it's important that they get behind our ideas. And I think that there's been a lot of consultation that has taken place in this process. I can imagine that in other political parties it was something that was done by the Central Command, whereas we went across each and every province, engaged with our structures, made sure that we gave ample opportunity for feedback and input into this document, so that we had something that not only the public but our internal party structures could buy into. I want to touch on the second question in terms of us potentially having a saviour complex. I think if we had come out here and said the DA is the only party that can save South Africa, that may have been correctly placed criticism. However, you would have heard in my opening address that I said together with civil society, the public and business, we need to rescue our country. It's so important that we work together. I think South Africans are very resilient. We face a number of challenges. And it's important that we recognise that the only people who are going to get us out of this mess is ourselves, and that's not just the DA, but that's the public, that's civil society and business. And that's why I think it's important that we get behind this collective objective if we want to displace the ANC from power and make sure that we have a governing majority coalition that is able to look after the interests of people and make sure that we are able to alleviate things like poverty, create jobs, and make sure that we have a more dignified life for the majority of South Africans. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I didn't forget your question on, the Cape Independence Party. The chairman will handle it.
What will the chair handle? Oh, okay. Okay. I think Matthew has handled the issue around rescuing South Africa. I think it would be completely misplaced as a party to think that we alone can rescue South Africa. We are going to only be able to rescue South Africa with the participation and the willingness of South Africans themselves. And ultimately, we can campaign all we want, but on election day, the power shifts away from political parties into the hands of the people. And so what we are saying is that these are the tools that we can provide. This is the research that we've done. We've listened to you. We've been on the ground. We know what the issues are that you are facing. Ultimately, the choice will have to be yours, and the power will shift to you when you go into that booth on election day and you cast your vote. And so it's very much a symbiotic relationship and not one that is just paternalistic on the side of the Democratic Alliance. The retaining of the Western Cape, Natasha, I think Solly's also touched on this, on localized factors. We only lost one ward, which was in George, and of course, we don't want to cede any ground to anybody, so we will never minimize or trivialize losing a ward. It was a marginal ward that we've now lost, but ultimately we are encouraged by the pattern that we are seeing. I think polling and by-election results have to be viewed in a pattern. And if there is a pattern of losing by-elections, then you can start to say, look, there is now worry here that we may be ceding ground to other political parties. But if it's localized issues here and there isn't a sustained pattern of losing by-elections, we are not concerned about not retaining the Western Cape. But again, we are not leaving anything to chance, nor are we ever going to be relaxed and say that we will retain this province. We think that we've got a compelling offer to make to the people of the Western Cape. We think that we will be able to demonstrate what we've been able to do. They too will be able to attest to how we have governed in the Western Cape in the past 5 years. The fact that we've got the lowest unemployment rate in the country. The fact that we are spending in places like the city of Cape Town, over 60% of the city's budget gets to be spent in areas that need it the most, in areas in poorer areas of the city. The fact that we have tried to shield the people of the Western Cape as much as we can from the harsh realities of load shedding. I think these things will be front and center, hopefully, at the minds of the people of the Western Cape when they go to the polls. And so we leave nothing for granted, we take nothing for granted, but we will be making our offer to the people of the Western Cape to say that we can continue doing well if we get your support and you hire us for another 5 years. On the issue around the referendum party, Dr. Meyer will talk to that, but I suspect that's something that will have to be considered by the multi-party charter. The EFF's desire to become the official opposition. Look, of course, any political party can have goals and ambitions, similarly to how we are in the seat of the executive here to say that we have an ambition to put together an opposition-led national government. And so, I take it from where it comes, that the EFF wants to grow. I think it's going to be very difficult for the EFF to surpass the levels of support, at least where the Democratic Alliance is. From our understanding of the research that we are seeing, there's a particular cap that the organization will not be able to necessarily break through. But ultimately, as I said, any political party has rights to have goals, and ours really is sustained on Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, the Northern Cape, and growing our share of the vote nationally, and hopefully be able to put together a national coalition government. Thank you.
Thank you, Siviwe. I think in terms of the question of the Western Cape, will we lose our majority? I think Siviwe has clearly indicated that there will be no time and place for complacency, but our research, our indications are that we will again win the Western Cape with an outright majority, because we have rescued the Western Cape from the ANC in 2006, when Helen Zille became the DA mayor. 2 years later, 2008, she became the best mayor in the world, received an award also in New York. But in 2009, we rescued the Western Cape from an ANC provincial government, and we took over that province in 2009, and since then, for last 15 years, we have rescued the Western Cape, and so we have learned a few lessons from that experience, but there will be no time for complacency. We believe in governing with humility, and as our Chief Whip has indicated, we will now take this manifesto to every corner across South Africa, and we will certainly see Ellen Winde being inaugurated again after the May election as the Premier of the Western Cape. What will happen in terms of after the election? The DA Federal Council and the Federal Executive will then receive a report from the National Campaign Team. We will do a thorough debriefing, look at what our polling said, what happened during the campaign, before the campaign, and do our own analysis. We will also ask every provincial campaign team to conduct their own provincial campaign debriefings. We will compile a comprehensive report. That report will then be tabled to the Federal Executive of the Democratic Alliance, and then finally to the Federal Council. And on that basis, we will take certain steps, and certain decisions will be taken by then. In relation to the questions of the multi-party charter, we know that the multi-party charter has their own media team. They have their own media conferences, and they will be able to respond, and they will be very happy to respond to any questions. This is the DA Manifesto Launch briefing, and I'm certain that the multi-party charter media officials will be happy to respond to such questions. While we see countrywide, but also in the Western Cape, colored nationalist parties, but also ethnic nationalist parties, we see parties that want to secede from South Africa. Well, I've got news for them. Again, this is why I like the Constitution, because the Constitution gives us the guidance. And where do you get this guidance? Up front in the preamble of the Constitution. It says, we believe, we the people of South Africa, we believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. So technically, in the preamble, I cannot see how you can have a separate Western Cape, because firstly, we don't want to go there. We do not believe in that, but there are other parties that believe in that. We will not go that route. That's the wrong route. We ask people to vote for the Democratic Alliance because we believe we are united in our diversity. We are one South Africa. We believe in South Africa. And therefore, there is no place for racial and ethnic nationalism, and we reject it. Siviwe is absolutely right. If you compare the Western Cape with the rest of the other provinces, lowest unemployment, the lowest inequality as measured by the Human Development Index. We have the best job numbers. We have the best reduction in crime, specifically murder in South Africa. And in November 2022, we have seen in the fourth quarter of 2022, the job numbers came out of South Africa. The job numbers indicate at that time there was 169,000 new jobs created all over South Africa. Of that 169,000, 176,000 were created in the Western Cape. In other words, 98% of all the new jobs that were created in the fourth quarter of 2022 were created in the Western Cape, and only 2% of the jobs were created in the other 8 provinces. I think the evidence, the facts, the data, the research is overwhelming. And so we want to do more. That's why our plan is to build a 1 trillion rand economy, create a GDP growth of 5%, and create 600,000 new jobs over time. But nothing is more important to rescue Gauteng, because the executive seat of power is here. Can you imagine a Gauteng DA government and a new DA-led government here in the Union Buildings? We will be able to fix the financial and economic capital of South Africa, Gauteng. That's the purpose, that's the plan, that's the manifesto. We are marching tomorrow, and we are ready to march, we are ready to launch, and we are ready to govern South Africa after the May election.
Cool. Thank you very much, colleagues. Before we, okay, you've got a follow-up? Sure.
Good morning, Alpha here from Eyewitness News. We understand that the referendum party has applied to join the multi-party charter, and we've seen the Action SA has rejected their proposal or their application. What's the DA stance on that application? Do you have the same view that you're going to reject the application to join the charter, or are you for them joining the charter? Thank you.
Okay, cool. There's a follow-up there.
Okay, just two quick questions for me.
Yeah.
In terms of the Western Cape and the DA's stance on the conflict in Gaza, how much do you think that's going to impact your numbers and your support in the Western Cape going forward in this particular election? And you made a very specific emphasis on the fact that the manifesto has been costed. Is that a reference for perhaps to the EFF and the idea that people are saying they're making a lot of claims and they don't know where the money is going to be coming from? What is the importance of that in terms of your manifesto?
Okay,
Thank you.
cool. Are we absolutely sure that there is no follow-up, because we'll close after this? Okay, cool. Before I let my colleagues get into it, Natasha, I was able to verify with our national campaigns team, we haven't lost a word to the Freedom Front in a very long time. And secondly, I mean, it would be extremely inconsistent with reality and history to move from almost 10% to more than 22%, for the EFF to take us down. But, if we become the national government, perhaps they can settle for second prize. So I'll let the Chief Whip deal with your question in particular, and both Matt and the Chairperson will deal with your questions on, I think, the costing part and the other one in the Middle East. Go first.
I'm going to deal with the MPC question from Eyewitness News. So the way in which the multi-party charter functions is by way of consensus. So decisions are taken by consensus. It's in the founding documents of the charter, and the structure that was decided on was that if there are political parties that wish to make an application to the MPC, they make an application, and the MPC that then makes a decision as the structure. So it would be extremely irresponsible of us to then, as a political party, speak before the multi-party charter has expressed itself. So the application has gone there. The MPC will, in accordance to their own governance rules, make a decision, decide on what the decision is, and just to give you an indication, decisions there are taken by consensus. So that is how it will work, and as Ivan had says, essentially that will be communicated by the MPC. We don't want to overstep. Matt, do you want to come and talk about the costing? Yeah.
So my initial response is infer what you will. But I think it's important to acknowledge that we are in a very constrained fiscal environment in South Africa, that even if a new government comes in place, there are going to be financial realities that we are going to have to deal with. And that's why in our manifesto, it is largely revenue neutral. There are a couple of proposals, and I'm not going to scoop us, so you'll find out what they are tomorrow. But the idea is to try and use the existing money that we have within the fiscus itself, try and cut down waste where possible, and introduce new legislation and regulations to try and generate savings elsewhere. Because at this moment in time, there's a bias of funds towards things like VIP protection, particularly millionaire managers and the like, instead of that money being redirected towards the most vulnerable in society. And this is why it's important that we emphasize there are certain proposals in our manifesto that are costed, because it doesn't help that we come out here and say we are going to increase X if we're not able to show exactly what it is we're going to increase it with and where we're going to find that money. And I think a bit more detail will even be provided at our alternative budget, which will take place on Monday, which will be informed by our manifesto priorities. And I'm sure if you want to go through the 10 different sheets of that spreadsheet, you can request it from our team, and they'll allow you to go through it. But I think it's always important that the commitments that we make to voters are grounded in reality, that there are things that we are able to afford and things that we are able to deliver on. And maybe just one last comment. Particularly in the context of our provinces, if you look at Gauteng, you look at the Western Cape, KZN, and they have predominantly large budgets in health and education. It's very difficult for any incoming government to promise big trinket items and big wonderful things that they're going to be able to turn things around. We've got to try and use the least cost interventions to make sure we can improve the quality of education, the quality of healthcare in the most efficient way possible. And I think that's what we're really trying to emphasize and saying our plan is costed. We've got an idea of how we're going to go about doing this, and we've got something that will serve as our blueprint as soon as we get into government, and we'll start delivering. Thank you.
I think it is important to understand how you grow an economy. There are three instruments. One is fiscal policy. We know what is the current fiscal situation in South Africa. The budget deficit is 6%. Debt to GDP is almost 80%. You cannot run an economy on that scale. Every day, the National Treasury has to pay back in terms of the debt, 1 billion rand per day. Every single day, Transnet borrow 1 billion rand. There's no way you can borrow yourselves out of debt. And that's why the Democratic Alliance has tabled what is called a fiscal responsibility bill, also known as a fiscal debt break law. Germans speak about Schuldenbremse, to have a debt break law on the debt, because that is definitely not sustainable. But the biggest fiscal responsibility is to manage the budget that you have effectively. Every year, we hear the Auditor General of South Africa reporting to Parliament billions of rand that are wasted, billions of rand that are being stolen, and we say that will come to an end. And if you can imagine a government in the union buildings that does not steal, that does not waste, that's where the money will come from in terms of managing the budget. But in terms of the second instrument to grow the economy is by having monetary policy. We know there are some parties that believes in nationalizing the Reserve Bank. We believe that's the wrong way to go. But the biggest investment that we will make is in the third instrument to grow the economy, and that is called structural reform. Here we sit in the capital city, in the executive seat, and there was no electricity last night in this town. All the ambassadors live here in this area, and we believe Eskom and the ANC has failed South Africans. We believe we need to unbundle Eskom, allow for more independent power producers. I think people of South Africa will know that we have already announced in the Western Cape one town that will become free from load shedding. And that town is Riversdale in Essequa in the Southern Cape. That's the vision. But we want to bring that vision to the rest of South Africa because we want to rescue all of South Africa. And so for us, the state-owned entities need major overhaul, major reform, because that's where billions of rands are being wasted. And we believe that this manifesto can be budgeted in terms of our commitments out of the wasteful expenditure that the Auditor General reports every year. We also believe in fiscal consolidation, attracting new revenue, and cut your expenditure. But what we do not believe in is to tax South African citizens more, because, and as you will see tomorrow when we release our manifesto, we believe South African taxpayers are really heavy taxed already in South Africa. And so tomorrow you will see also a fiscal plan for the implementation of our manifesto, because it is not promises, it is commitments. There's a difference, there's a budget, there's a time frame, but more importantly, you can only deliver that manifesto with capable and a competent state. And that's exactly what the National Development Plan asks we must do. The National Development Plan say do three things. A, build a capable state. This manifesto will outline the steps in building a capable state. Secondly, the National Development Plan speaks about bring leadership. You will now see tomorrow the real leadership in unpacking this manifesto. And thirdly, we believe through the National Development Plan in active citizenship. Tomorrow 15,000 people are going to go to the streets, marching towards the union buildings. And there are more buses wanting to come. And we invite all people in South Africa. And for those who cannot come, we ask you to join us in a virtual march towards the union buildings. For those who are staying at home and cannot come here tomorrow, take part in the emotional march, because we want to set this place tomorrow into a new trajectory. We want to focus on rescuing South Africa. That's the purpose. Tomorrow, the biggest march and the focus of this march is to bring hope to the people of South Africa.
Gaza, you want to handle that question? But anyway, I'll get to it. So basically what we're picking up from consistent research that we've been able to tell is that the issues that are coming up high, whether it's in the Western Cape and across, is load shedding, water shedding, the cost of living, and that's what our polls have consistently shown us over time in both the Western Cape and in here. And of course, you know, the tracking takes into consideration periods of time, and we haven't picked up any shift in terms of the sentiment that we are picking both nationally and in the province on the key issues that we are picking up from members of the public and voters across in terms of what affects them on a day-to-day basis. It's access to jobs. What affects them on a day-to-day basis is the high cost of living, the high cost of electricity. And that's why our plan is tailored towards those solutions that our research shows affect all South Africans. So on that note, I will close. We will be open for one-on-ones. We are remaining here for a significant amount of time. And thanks everyone for coming through. Even for tomorrow, if you are joining in the march, just make sure that at least you've got sneakers on. It's a 2 kilometers march from Church Square to come here. We'll also provide water alongside the march, and there'll be water stations here so that you remain healthy throughout. Thank you very much. You want one-on-one?
In this election, only the registered have the power. If you're tired of load shedding, register to vote. If you're tired of corruption, register to vote. If you're tired of the rising cost of living, register to vote. And if you're tired of a government that's continuously working against you, register to vote. Go to check.da.org.za and let's give power to the registered.
Get help registering to vote at check.da.org.za. Register to rescue South Africa.
Thanks for watching. All across our beautiful country, people are joining forces to elect the new government that can rescue South Africa, help our rescue mission, and register to vote. Get help registering online now at check.da.org.za. Let's rescue South Africa.